Welcome to the Daily DLP. I'm your host, Ash Thompson. And today I want to talk about a quote from a player that none of us have actually seen play a single down of football in a Lions uniform yet. I'm going to talk about something that Emmanuel Moseley said that has just kind of been a bit of a bump in the road, at most, in Lions land. No one's really discussing it or the importance of it or how huge of a thing it could be for the 2023 season. See you after the jump. Let's jump straight into it. Here's a quote from a Tim 20-man article on DetroitLions.com. Tim does great work, always has. When I talk about Lions media members who I'm not a huge fan of, know that Tim is absolutely not one of those. Seems like a delightful guy. But here's the quote from Emmanuel Moseley. "To be honest, I feel like my old self, man," which is a credit to the training room. They did a really good job. Training room, weight room, dietitians. They did a great job of keeping me up. So when I got back out there, I felt like my old self. It wasn't that long ago that we were hearing something very different from a Lions player. Terrell Crosby was not kind to the franchise on his way out the door, to say the least. I'm not going to go into direct quotes from him, but the general tone of his communication to the media was that the Lions didn't take care of their injured players. Crosby never actually played a down of real NFL football under Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. He was cut before the 2021 season opener. To a certain extent, the remarks of a recently fired employee should be taken with a grain of salt, but the Lions appear to have taken this as some constructive criticism. The Lions have had excessive injury issues for as long as I can remember. Like, Crosby is far from the first Lions player to exit stage left, no longer capable of engaging in the daily grind that is an NFL season. Lions fans may remember names like Anthony Zettel, Kevin Johnson, Kevin Smith, Mikel LeSure, or they may not remember those names, kind of depending on their age. But in a league where players most often seem to come back from injuries as good or better than they were before, it has always just kind of seemed like Lions players never did. I mentioned yesterday that the Lions' offensive line hadn't played a single down of football together, despite having been under contract to a man for 2 full seasons. There has always been some improbable story like that hovering around the team like a dark cloud. Like, let's look at the DeAndre Levy situation. How many guys get injured the way Stephen Tulloch did, or Louis Delmas had a string of continuous injury issues? How many quarterbacks in a year end the season on IR? How often did Matthew Stafford, even excluding an injury that actually took him off the field, because he was tough as nails, as we will all recall, as a Lion. That was kind of his defining feature. Rocket cannon arm. Tough as nails. Matthew Stafford. But he was always banged up. Always had nagging injuries. And they never seemed to go away. They never seemed to get better. Most of his career was spent right in the middle of the pack in terms of the NFL regarding sacks. He wasn't a running QB, taking a bunch of extra hits that could cause nagging injuries. Yet, if he had an office in the Lions training facility, it probably would have been in the training room getting treated for some kind of injury. Now, this year, before training camp, the Lions seem to have made some major changes to their training staff. And I'm not going to go into the names of longtime employees that you and I have never interacted with or probably even heard of, who may or may not still be employed in some way by the team. If you want that, Riz wrote an article about it on July 12th. Go there and read some more information about the specifics. Today, I'm not here to drag anyone through the mud or imply fault where I could never possibly know whether or not there was any regarding negligence in terms of injury treatment. I'm just saying what people have said. And all I'm really saying is that it is nice, as a fan of the team, to see progress in the way that the players on the team regard their employers. And now I'm going to get to a disgruntled employee currently with the team. Let's talk a little bit about Isaiah Buggs. Now that we have something to chew on that isn't just changing of Twitter profiles and some cryptic BS. There have been regimes where we would have been hearing about this Buggs situation for the last 2 months. Like, neither he or the team have really precisely at this point come out and said exactly what is going on. There's some conflicting information. Some are saying he was out of shape basically at training camp when it started. And others are just saying that guys under him in the depth chart played really well. But what it looks like is happening is that on Thursday, the guys who crushed it during training camp are going to play at the expense of a guy who was a marginal starter when we came into training camp. This is not surprising. This fits with the behavior of the team up to this point in this regime of front office and coaching staff. Look at Jerry Jacobs as an example. He just keeps getting the nod over guys who were more highly drafted and or make more money than him, because when he's on the field, he's getting the job done and putting that tape out there. We don't know at this point, at least not while I'm recording this. This will drop a day later almost, whether Moseley is going to play Thursday or not. But we do know that barring unforeseen circumstances, Isaiah Buggs won't. Dan Campbell said today, and Dan Campbell's generally not a liar, he said that it was purely based on play on the field. And can any of us really say that Levi Onwuzurike, Broderick Martin, and Benito Jones didn't absolutely kill it in this preseason? Because they did. They absolutely did. If you don't think that, I don't know what you were watching. And that is the thing that matters to this team. Like, there were spots on this roster where we knew who the starters were in January. We knew Amon-Ra St. Brown was starting. We knew Jared Goff was starting. We were pretty sure that the offensive line, unless they were not healthy, was going to be the 5 guys who were starting on Thursday. The interior defensive line, on the other hand, was the biggest question mark on this roster that did not get a big, shiny series of new answers applied to it during this offseason. Like, Buggs put in starter snaps last year for the Lions, made a lot of tackles. But their interior defensive line was among the worst position groups in the NFL last year. League-wide, not just on this team. This team was questionable whether it was the worst one on this team, which, things have changed. We hope. But the IDL wasn't good. He was the best guy on it. The fact that a bunch of first and second year guys seem to have jumped him on the depth chart before week 1 cannot be a bad thing for the Lions long term. And they are still looking at things in a lot of ways, particularly at spots like the interior defensive line, long term. Yesterday I did a 25-minute game preview. Gray's going to give you something like that too. You guys are going to have plenty of content. Today's is going to be a short one because that's really all I have to say about this, and I am not just going to fill airtime with this show. If there's not a whole bunch to say in a given day, nothing has really happened, I'm not just going to make up some BS. I'll cover as much time as I need to and then pop out of the way. But the bottom line on this is Buggs is disgruntled because he's not playing Thursday. A couple years ago, we had a guy claiming medical negligence from the team. So when you hear someone spouting that the Lions under Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are the same old Lions, give them a metaphorical punch in the head for me. Have a great day.